I know what you're doing with her. The employee's shout broke the silence of the wedding. Her finger was trembling, pointing at the bride. 200 guests held their breath. Then, from the shadows of the mansion, a little girl appeared, barefoot, dirty, with a torn dress and the empty eyes of someone who has survived abandonment. When she whispered, "Daddy," the millionaire fell to his knees. His daughter, the one his fiancée swore she'd sent to an elite boarding school, had been locked up in a place no child should ever know. And this humble woman had just risked everything to tell the truth. Like if this touched your soul, it's more than a click. It's a silent embrace between those who understand. Comment on how you think this story will end, and if you haven't subscribed yet, it costs you nothing, but it means a lot to us. Thank you for being here. The June sun beat down hard on the gardens of the Dunn estate, casting long shadows of the cypress trees over the perfectly manicured lawn. It was an ideal day for a wedding. Tables were covered with embroidered white linen tablecloths. Floral arrangements of roses and jasmine perfumed the air, and more than 200 guests conversed animatedly under ivory silk tents. The string quartet tuned their instruments next to the 18th-century stone fountain, preparing to perform the melodies that would accompany the most awaited moment of the social season, the marriage of Ethan Dunn, the millionaire businessman, from New York, to Isabel Carter, the heiress of one of the oldest families in Virginia. Isabel looked radiant in her French lace gown, the veil cascading from her updo, the pearls inherited from her grandmother shining against her pale neck. Her smile was perfect, studied as she greeted guests with calculated gestures of elegance. By her side, Mrs. Veronica, her mother, watched everything with a hawk's eyes, dressed completely in black despite the heat, as if she were at a funeral and not a celebration. Ethan waited by the improvised altar under an arch of white flowers. His dark grey suit was impeccable, but on his face there was something that didn't quite fit, an absent expression, as if part of him was elsewhere. Every few minutes, his eyes scanned the crowd, looking for something or someone who wasn't there. The music began. The violins played the first notes of the wedding march. The guests stood up. Isabel took the first step down the rose-petal aisle. That's when it happened. A side door of the mansion, which always remained closed, opened with a creak that cut the air like a knife. The sound was loud enough for some guests to turn their heads. The music faltered for a second, then continued. But what appeared in that entrance stopped everything. A small, fragile, almost ghostly figure emerged from the shadows inside the house. It was a girl. Her red dress, which must have once been pretty, was torn and dirty, covered in dark stains that looked like soot, mixed with dirt. Her face, framed by tangled, dull hair, showed dirty cheeks with lines where tears had run. Her bare feet left small, dusty footprints on the white marble of the terrace. Behind her, gently holding her shoulder, was Lucy, the mansion's cleaner. Her navy blue uniform was wrinkled, also stained with dirt, as if she had been crawling through places no one should enter. Her brown hair, usually pulled back in a neat bun, fell messily over her shoulders, but her eyes shone, with a fierce determination no one had seen in her before. The girl took a hesitant step toward the gardens. The sunlight illuminated her completely, revealing dark marks on her arms, scratches on her legs, the extreme thinness of her little body. And then, with a voice so small and broken that it was barely heard above the growing murmur of the guests, she whispered, "Daddy." The music stopped abruptly. The violins were suspended in the air. The silence that followed was absolute, heavy, as if all the oxygen had been sucked out of the gardens. Ethan was paralyzed. His face went from confusion to recognition in a matter of seconds. His eyes widened, his mouth opened, but no sound came out. "Sophia," he finally managed to articulate, his voice breaking like glass. Isabel turned violently. Her face, until then serene and perfect, transformed into a mask of pure panic. Her bouquet of flowers fell from her hands. Mrs. Veronica stepped forward, her dark eyes shooting daggers at Lucy. "Get that woman out of here," shouted Isabel, her voice losing all its aristocratic composure. "Guards, now!" But Ethan was already running. He left the altar, crossed the petal aisle, tripping over his own foot in his haste. He fell to his knees in front of his daughter and wrapped her in his arms so tightly that he seemed to fear she would vanish if he let her go. "Sophia, my child, my little one," he sobbed against her dirty hair. "Where have you been? What did they do to you? The guests rose from their seats. Conversations erupted like fireworks. Camera flashes began to fire. Isabel tried to approach, but two of Ethan's closest men stopped her when he made a violent gesture with his hand. Lucy remained where she was, her legs trembling but her head held high. She knew what was coming would be difficult. She knew there would be questions, accusations, maybe even consequences. But she also knew she had done the right thing. And as chaos broke out in the gardens of the Dunn estate, under the relentless June sun, a truth that had been buried in the darkness finally came to light. But to understand how they reached that moment, we have to go back. We have to go back to the day everything began to go wrong, to the day a silent, humble woman began to see what no one else wanted to see. 3 months earlier, the Dunn estate was a different place, still imposing, still full of history in every stone of its century-and-a-half-old walls, but with a quieter, almost melancholic air. The large, empty rooms echoed with the sound of solitary footsteps. The gardens, although well-maintained, seemed to be waiting for something that never arrived. Lucy Miller had worked there for 5 years. She arrived every morning at 6, when the sky over the Virginia hills was just beginning to turn pink, and left after dark, when the fireflies began to dance among the lemon trees. She was a 35-year-old woman of medium height, with strong hands calloused by work and brown eyes that observed more than she spoke. She came from a small town 30 miles away, where she lived with her sick mother in a 2-bedroom house with a red tile roof and whitewashed walls. Every dollar she earned had a destination: medicine, food, rent. There was no room for luxuries or dreams, but Lucy didn't complain. She had learned long ago that life didn't deal fair cards, and that dignity didn't depend on what you had, but on how you acted with the little you were given. The mansion was her second home. She knew every corner, every creak of the wooden floor, every damp stain on the ceiling of the east wing. She cleaned the 17 bedrooms, polished the gold-framed mirrors, buffed the marble floors until they reflected like water. But more than that, Lucy also observed, she saw the photographs Ethan kept on his desk. His wife, who had died 3 years earlier, smiling on the beach with baby Sophia in her arms. She saw how the businessman returned every night from his New York offices exhausted, with dark circles sinking deeper into his face. And above all, she saw Sophia. The girl was 6 years old when Lucy began to notice that something wasn't right. Before, Sophia was like a ray of sunshine in that enormous house. She ran through the halls with her worn teddy bear, sang nonsensical songs while playing in the garden, asked Lucy 1,000 questions about flowers and birds and clouds. She was smart, curious, full of life. But in the last few weeks, something had changed. Lucy noticed it first in the small details. The way Sophia stopped singing, how she started hiding behind the curtains when she heard unfamiliar voices, the way she hugged her bear so tightly that her knuckles turned white. One March morning, while Lucy was cleaning the library, she found the girl curled up under the solid oak desk, her knees against her chest and her eyes wide open. "Sophia, honey, what are you doing there?" asked Lucy, crouching down to her level. The girl didn't answer immediately. She just looked toward the door with an expression Lucy couldn't interpret. Fear, anxiety. "Is she here?" Sophia finally whispered. "Who, my love?" "The lady, the tall lady." Lucy frowned. There was no tall lady in the house. It was just them, Mr. Jenkins, the old chauffeur who came twice a week, and Marta, the cook, who arrived in the afternoons. "There's no one, Sophia. Just me. Do you want to come out of there?" The girl hesitated, then nodded slowly. Lucy held out her hand and helped her out. Sophia's yellow dress was wrinkled and had dust from under the desk. Her ballet slippers were worn at the tips. "Do you want me to make you some hot chocolate?" Lucy offered with a soft smile. Sophia's eyes briefly lit up, but then she looked toward the door again and shook her head. "No, I have to stay still," she said. "I have to stay still." Something cold ran down Lucy's back. "Who said that?" But Sophia only hugged her bear tighter and ran toward the stairs, her light footsteps echoing in the silence of the mansion. Lucy stood there, in the middle of the library filled with antique books and light filtered through tall windows, with an uncomfortable feeling nesting in her chest. It was the same instinct that had warned her when her mother had the first symptom of her illness, when the roof of her house started to crack before the leak appeared. An instinct that something bad was brewing in the shadows. That afternoon, while cleaning Ethan's office, Lucy saw something. That caught her attention. On the leather desk was an open manila envelope. It was not her business to read her employer's correspondence, but the edge of a photograph sticking out caught her eye. It was a photo of a woman, tall, thin, with perfectly straight black hair falling over her shoulders, dressed in a navy blue pantsuit. Her eyes were light, almost transparent, and her smile was calculated, as if it had been practiced in front of a mirror until it reached the exact angle of false warmth. Next to the photo was a note written in elegant handwriting. "Ethan, it was wonderful meeting you at the Boston conference. I hope we can continue this conversation. Warmly, Isabel Carter." Lucy left everything as it was and finished her cleaning, but that night as she rode the bus back to her town, she couldn't get that practiced smile or the transparent eyes of the woman in the photo out of her head. 2 weeks later, Isabel Carter crossed the doors of the Dunn estate for the first time, and with her, the darkness arrived. Lucy knew something had changed the moment she saw the black car stop in front of the main entrance. It was a new Mercedes, gleaming under the morning sun, with tinted windows that prevented seeing inside. The vehicle stayed there, engine running, for almost 5 full minutes before the doors opened. Isabel Carter stepped out first. She wore a white dress that reached just below her knees, high-heeled sandals that clicked against the courtyard, cobblestones and sunglasses so large they covered almost half her face. Her black hair fell like a perfect curtain. She moved her head with precise, studied gestures, as if every movement was part of a rehearsed choreography. But she didn't come alone. The second woman who emerged from the car made Lucy, who was watching from a second-floor window, feel an involuntary shiver. She was older, perhaps 60, but with a presence that filled the space oppressively. She was dressed completely in black, long skirt, long-sleeved blouse buttoned to the neck, a dark shawl over her shoulders despite the heat. Her grey hair was pulled back in a bun so tight it seemed to stretch the skin of her face. Her eyes were small, dark, and constantly moving, evaluating, judging. "Mrs. Veronica," Lucy heard Isabel call her. "Watch the step." The older woman didn't reply. She simply walked toward the mansion entrance with slow but deliberate steps, her ebony cane hitting the ground in a hypnotic rhythm. Ethan came out to greet them. He had spent days talking about Isabel with a mixture of nervous excitement and relief. He had told Marta the cook, who in turn told Lucy, that he had finally found someone he could talk to, someone who understood what it was like to manage a business empire, someone who would bring stability to his life and to Sophia's. "Isabel, what a joy you came," said Ethan, taking her hands and kissing them gently. "And you must be Mrs. Veronica. It's a pleasure to meet you." The older woman slightly inclined her head but didn't offer her hand. Her eyes scanned the mansion's facade, the columns, the windows, as if she were taking a mental inventory. "An impressive property," she finally said. Her voice was low, almost a whisper, but there was something about it that made every word feel like a sentence. "Although it needs renovation. There's dampness in the walls of the west wing." Ethan blinked, surprised she had noticed that from outside. "Ah, yes. We have to repair a few things, but the place has history, you know, over 150 years. "History," said Mrs. Veronica, "is just dust if it's not properly maintained." There was an awkward silence. Isabel quickly intervened with a light laugh that sounded like small bells. "Mum is always very practical. I tell her she has too critical an eye, but it's what makes her excellent at what she does." "And what does she do?" asked Ethan as he guided them inside. "Property management," Isabel replied. Softly. "After my father passed away, Mom took care of all our estates. She can see problems that others don't see." Lucy, who had come down the stairs and was now pretending to arrange the flowers in the foyer, caught that phrase. She can see problems that others don't see. Something about the way Isabel said it gave Lucy goosebumps. "And where is little Sophia?" asked Isabel, looking around with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I'm dying to meet her." "She must be in her room." "Sophia is a little shy with strangers at first, but I'm sure you'll grow fond of her," said Ethan with paternal pride. "Of course," murmured Mrs. Veronica, her eyes fixed on the staircase where, indeed, a small shadow was moving on the second-floor landing. Sophia was there, half hidden behind the railing, watching the visitors. Lucy managed to see her face before the girl disappeared, running down the hallway, and what she saw chilled her blood. pure terror in those childlike eyes. The following days were a gradual but relentless transformation of the mansion. Isabel began to visit more and more frequently, staying first a few hours, then all day, and finally announced that it would be more practical if she and her mother temporarily moved in while they planned the wedding. Ethan, absorbed in his business and clearly relieved to have adult company after years of solitude, accepted unreservedly. With the permanent arrival of Isabel and Mrs. Veronica, the atmosphere of the house changed. Doors began to be locked. Rooms that were once open now remained blocked. Mrs. Veronica settled in the East Wing, in a suite that had been unoccupied since Ethan's grandmother's death, and from there she seemed to control everything with an invisible but omnipresent gaze. Isabel, for her part, moved through the house as if she already owned it. She rearranged the furniture in the main living room, ordered the removal of family photographs she considered outdated, and began giving orders to the staff with an authority that wasn't hers yet. "Lucy," she told her one afternoon when the cleaner was tidying the dining room, "from now on, I need you to consult me before entering certain rooms. Mrs. Veronica values her privacy very much." "Of course, ma'am," Lucy replied with her head down, although inside she felt a knot of indignation. "And one more thing," Isabel continued, inspecting her perfectly manicured nails. "Sophia has been very difficult lately. If you see her behaving strangely, I need you to inform me immediately." "Understood." Lucy looked up. "Difficult? In what sense?" Isabel looked at her with those light eyes that seemed to have no bottom. "Tantrums, disobedience, lies. Typical things from children who haven't had proper discipline. But that is going to change. I will take care of that." The way she said it, with that cold, determined calm, made Lucy feel nauseous. That night, as she walked down the second-floor hallway to close the windows before leaving, Lucy heard a sound that stopped her dead. It was a soft, muffled sob coming from Sophia's room. She approached the door and pushed it slightly. It was ajar. Sophia was curled up in her bed, still dressed, with the light off. Her teddy bear was on the floor, thrown as if she had flung it. The girl was crying with her face buried in the pillow. "Sophia, honey, what's wrong?" whispered Lucy, entering and sitting on the edge of the bed. The girl turned. Her eyes were red and swollen. "She told me I can't have Bear in my bed," she sobbed. "She says only babies sleep with stuffed animals, that I have to grow up. But I don't want to grow up, Lucy. I just want Bear." Lucy felt a dull rage ignite in her chest. "Your daddy would never take Bear away from you." "But he's not here. He's never here. And she scares me, Lucy." "Why does she scare you?" Sophia hugged herself, trembling. "She looks at me a certain way, like she wants me to disappear." Lucy hugged her, feeling a terrible weight in her heart. She picked up the bear from the floor and placed it in the girl's arms. "No one is going to take Bear away from you. And don't let anyone tell you that you have to grow up faster than you want to, okay?" Sophia nodded, clinging to the stuffed animal, as if it were her only anchor in a stormy sea. Lucy waited until the girl fell asleep, then left the room with silent steps. But as she turned into the hallway, she stopped dead. Mrs. Veronica was there, standing in the shadows, motionless, watching her with those dark eyes that didn't blink. "Good evening, Lucy," she said in her whispering voice. "Good evening, Ma'am," Lucy replied, feeling a chill run down her spine. The older woman didn't move, didn't say anything else. She only watched as Lucy passed her and went down the stairs, feeling that gaze nailed to her back like icy needles. When she finally left the mansion that night, Lucy took a deep breath of the fresh country air. Stars shone over the dark hills, but for the first time in 5 years, she was afraid to return the next day. May arrived with oppressive heat, and with it, news that fell upon the mansion like a sentence. Lucy was polishing the mirrors in the living room when she heard raised voices coming from Ethan's office. The door was closed but not completely, and words filtered into the hallway. "It's what's best for her, Ethan. Believe me." It was Isabel's voice, soft but insistent. "But she's still so small. She's only 6 years old." Ethan sounded tired, as if this wasn't the first time they were having this conversation. "Precisely why. The early years are crucial for character formation. Sophia needs structure, discipline, an environment where she can develop her full potential. Here she is, too spoiled, too protected. She's happy here." "Happy?" Isabel's voice hardened slightly. "Ethan, darling. The girl has no friends her age. She spends all day hiding in the house, talking to the staff. That's not healthy. St. Teresa's Academy has an excellent reputation. They specialize in girls from distinguished families. She will learn languages, music, proper manners. I can hire private tutors for all that. It's not the same. She needs to socialize, learn to be independent. What kind of life will she have if she grows up unable to separate from her father? There was a long silence. Lucy, who had imperceptibly moved closer to the door, held her breath. I don't know, Isabel. My mother sent me to boarding school when I was 8, and I hated it. I felt abandoned. But look what you achieved. You became a successful, strong man. Sometimes love means making difficult decisions. Another pause. What if we just wait 1 more year? Until she's ready, darling. Now Isabel's voice was pure honey. You yourself told me you barely have time to be with her. Your New York businesses keep you busy 6 days a week. The girl is practically alone. At least at St. Teresa's, she'll be surrounded by competent people with structured activities with appropriate attention. Think about her, not yourself. Lucy felt nauseous. The manipulation was so subtle, so perfectly executed, that it almost sounded logical. Let me think about it, Ethan finally said. Of course. But enrollment closes next month. If we're going to do it, we have to decide soon. Lucy quickly moved away before they could open the door. Her mind was racing. She had to talk to Ethan. She had to make him understand that this was a mistake. But how? She was just the cleaner. Who would believe her about his future wife's intentions? That afternoon, she looked for Sophia in the places where the girl used to hide. She found her in the conservatory, sitting among pots of geraniums, drawing in a notebook with colored crayons. Hello, little one, what are you drawing? Sophia held up the notebook. It was a drawing of a house, a tree, 2 figures, a large one and a small one holding hands. The sun shone yellow in the corner. It's me and Daddy, she explained, before she came. Lucy sat next to her on the tiled floor. Do you miss those times? The girl nodded slowly. Daddy doesn't read me stories before bed anymore. He doesn't take me to town to buy ice cream anymore. He's always busy talking to her. Your daddy loves you very much, Sophia. He's just confused right now. Is she going to stay forever? Lucy didn't know how to answer. Before she could say anything, the conservatory door opened forcefully. Mrs. Veronica was there, her dark figure, silhouetted against the light outside. Sophia, your piano tutor is waiting. You're 15 minutes late. The girl jumped up, quickly putting away her notebook. Sorry, Grandma Veronica. I am not your grandmother. I am Mrs. Veronica, and punctuality is a sign of respect, something you clearly need to learn. Sophia ran out, her slippers tapping the floor. Mrs. Veronica stayed a moment longer, looking at Lucy with that unreadable expression. You are very close to the child, she observed. I'm just kind to her, Mom, as anyone would be. Misdirected kindness can confuse children. They can start to have inappropriate expectations about their place in the world and about the place of others. The message was clear. Stay in your place. Lucy didn't answer. She simply nodded and continued with her work, but her hands were trembling as she watered the plants. A week later, the decision had been made. Ethan gathered all the staff in the service dining room to make the announcement. Sophia will be going to St. Teresa's Academy starting next month, he said, although his voice lacked conviction. It's a great opportunity for her. She will return home during holidays, of course. Mr. Jenkins, the old chauffeur, frowned. The one in Boston? That place is very far for such a small girl. No, a new one. Here in Virginia, a few hours away. Isabel knows the headmistress personally. Marta, the cook, exchanged a look with Lucy. Both felt the same chill. And does the child want to go? Marta asked boldly. Ethan hesitated. She's adjusting to the idea. It will be good for her. Isabel says that. Isabel says many things, murmured Mr. Jenkins, low enough for only Lucy to hear. The day of departure arrived too soon. It was a grey Tuesday with low clouds threatening rain. Sophia was in the foyer with a small pink suitcase at her feet. She wore her new boarding school uniform, navy blue skirt, white blouse, blazer with the embroidered crest. She looked even smaller in those overly formal clothes. Her eyes were red. She had been crying. Ethan hugged her tight, too tight, as if deep down in his heart he knew he was making a mistake. It will only be a few months, my love, and I will call you every day. I promise. I don't want to go, Daddy, Sophia sobbed against his chest. Please, I'll be good. I won't make noise. I won't bother anyone. But don't make me go. Isabel, watching from the stairs, came down with a determined step. Sophia, we talked about this. Big. Girls don't make scenes. You're going to a wonderful place where you'll make many friends and learn incredible things. Your father is right to send you. But I don't want to. What you want is not always what you need, Isabel said firmly, taking her arm. The car is waiting. Lucy, who was at the kitchen door, took a step forward without thinking. Mr. Dunn, may I speak with you for a moment? Ethan looked at her, surprised. Not now, Lucy. We are in the middle of... It's important, sir. Please. Isabel glared at her. Lucy, this is a family matter. It's not appropriate for you to intervene. It will only be a minute, Lucy insisted, feeling her heart pound. Ethan sighed and stepped away a few paces with her, while Isabel waited with Sophia, her hand still firm on the girl's shoulder. What is it? Asked Ethan. Lucy took a deep breath. Sir, I know it's not my place to say this, but are you sure about this? Sophia is terrified. I've never seen her like this, and she is so small. Lucy, I understand your concern, but you don't have children. You don't know how difficult it is to make these decisions. Isabel has experience with child education. Her family has sent generations to prestigious boarding schools. I trust her judgment. But you are her father. You know her better than anyone. And I see her every day, sir. She hasn't been right since Miss Isabel arrived. She's scared. She's changing. Ethan's expression hardened. Lucy, I appreciate your dedication to this house, but this doesn't concern you. Sophia will be fine, and you need to concentrate on your work, understood? It was like a slap in the face. Lucy nodded slowly and stepped back. She watched from the kitchen window as they put Sophia in the black car. The girl pressed her little hand against the glass, her eyes searching for Lucy until the last moment. And then the car started, the tires crunching on the gravel, disappearing down the cypress-lined drive. Marta approached Lucy and put a hand on her shoulder. You did what you could. It wasn't enough, Lucy whispered, feeling tears burning her eyes. That night, the mansion was quieter than ever. The hallways echoed empty. Sophia's room, with her bed perfectly made and her toys neatly arranged on the shelves, looked like a mausoleum. Lucy entered there when no one was looking. She sat in the small chair by the window where Sophia used to read her stories, and there, on the floor, half hidden under the bed, she found something that chilled her blood. It was Bear, the worn stuffed animal that Sophia loved more than anything in the world, the one she would never, ever, have voluntarily left behind. Lucy picked it up with trembling hands. It was cold, abandoned, forgotten in the haste of departure. Or not forgotten, left on purpose. Lucy pressed the stuffed animal to her chest, and at that moment she knew with absolute certainty that something was terribly wrong, and that no matter what it cost, she had to find out what. The first days after Sophia's departure passed in an artificial calm. Ethan spent even more time away, submerged in his business, as if work could fill the void his daughter had left. Isabel moved through the mansion with the confidence of someone who already owned the place, overseeing renovations, changing decorations, eliminating all traces of the previous life. Mrs. Veronica, for her part, had turned the East Wing into her personal domain. No one entered there without permission. The doors remained locked, and at night Lucy could see light filtering out from under the cracks until late hours. Sophia's first call came 3 days after her departure. Ethan answered it in his office with the door closed, but Lucy, who was cleaning the hallway, managed to hear fragments. "How are you, my love? Are they treating you well? Yes, I know you miss home. No, honey, you can't come back yet. You've only been gone 3 days. Sophia, please don't cry. You'll come to visit next month, I promise." When Ethan left the office, his face was pale. His eyes were red. Isabel intercepted him before he reached the stairs. "How was the call?" "She's crying. She says she doesn't like it, that the other girls are mean to her, that she wants to come home." Isabel sighed with studied patience. "It's completely normal, Ethan. All children go through an adjustment period. If you give in now, she'll never learn to be independent. You have to be strong." "What if it's true? What if they're treating her badly? I spoke to the headmistress this morning. She says Sophia is perfectly fine, that she's just being dramatic to get your attention. It's a technique manipulative children use." "Sophia isn't manipulative. All children are to some extent. It's instinctive. But if you give in every time she cries, you're teaching her that tears work. Is that what you want? Ethan ran his hands over his face, exhausted. No, I don't know. Maybe you're right. I am right, Isabel said, firmly taking his hand. Trust me. In a month she'll be happy there and she'll thank you. But the month passed and Sophia didn't call again. Ethan asked every 2 days. Why isn't she calling? Has something happened to her? The headmistress says she's very busy with her classes and activities, Isabel replied. It's a good sign, it means she's adjusting. But not even a quick call. Ethan, you have to let her grow. If you call her, it will seem like you don't trust her to handle things. Alone. And so week after week, the excuses continued. Every time Ethan asked about his daughter, Isabel had a perfectly reasonable answer. The headmistress said this, the girls were busy with that. It was better not to interrupt her progress. Everything sounded logical, sensible, carefully constructed, but Lucy didn't believe it. One afternoon in early June, while cleaning Mrs. Veronica's room, taking advantage of the fact that the woman had gone out with Isabel, Lucy made a discovery that confirmed her suspicions. She was emptying the wastebasket when she saw something crumpled at the bottom. It was a receipt. She smoothed it out carefully and read the printed words. St. Jude Temporary Care Institution, Queens District, New York. $350. Month of May. Lucy's heart stopped. St. Jude. That name sounded familiar. She had heard it in her town, in whispered conversations among women at the market. It was not a boarding school. It was a place where families left unwanted children. A place with a terrible reputation, unresolved complaints, rumors of abandonment and neglect. With trembling hands, she put the receipt in her apron pocket. She continued cleaning, but her mind was working frantically. She needed more information. She needed proof. That night, after everyone was asleep, Lucy went down to Ethan's office. The door was closed but not locked. She slipped in stealthily, using the light from her cell phone so as not to turn on the lamps. She searched amongst the papers on the desk. Invoices, contracts, business correspondence. Nothing about Sophia. Nothing about any boarding school. Then she remembered. Isabel had taken control of all the family documentation. She said it was to organize it better. Everything was now in the room she shared with Ethan in the main wing. Lucy knew it was dangerous, that if she was discovered she would lose her job immediately. But the image of Bear, abandoned under the bed, Sophia's terrified look, that receipt from a sinister place, everything weighed more than the fear. She went up the stairs with her heart hammering. The door to the master bedroom was ajar. She could hear Ethan's soft snoring from inside. She slipped inside like a shadow. There was a desk next to the window that Isabel had turned into her personal space. Lucy approached and began to open drawers with infinite care. The first contained jewelry and perfumes, the second, diaries and address books. In the third, she found a manila folder. She opened it and had to stop herself from gasping. Inside were documents, but they were not from St. Teresa's Academy. They were from the St. Jude Institution, temporary admission forms, a handwritten note. Keep her isolated, no visits, no calls until further notice, and a photograph. Sophia. But it wasn't the Sophia Lucy knew. In the photo, the girl was in a room with peeling walls, sitting on a metal cot. Her dress was dirty, her hair tangled, and her eyes were empty in a way no child should be. Lucy felt bile rising in her throat. She photographed everything with her cell phone, her hands shaking so much that she had to try 3 times for the images to be in focus. Then she heard a sound that chilled her. Footsteps in the hallway. She closed the folder quickly, put it back in the drawer, closed the desk. The footsteps were getting closer. There was no time to leave through the door. She hid behind the heavy window curtains just as the door opened completely. Where? Did I leave it? It was Isabel's voice, sleepy and irritated. I was sure I put it here. Lucy held her breath, pressing herself against the wall behind the thick fabric. She could see Isabel's silhouette through the material, moving around the room, opening drawers. The same drawer Lucy had just closed. Here it is, Isabel murmured. There was a sound of paper, then footsteps moving away. The door closed again. Lucy waited 5 full minutes, counting every second, before daring to move. When she finally came out of her hiding place, her legs barely held her. She returned to her small room in the attic where the staff slept and sat on her bed trembling. She looked at the photographs on her phone. The evidence was there. Clear. Irrefutable. But what could she do with it? Who could she tell? Ethan was completely under Isabel's control. The police would need more than photos on a phone. And if Isabel found out Lucy knew, she stayed awake all night, with Bear pressed to her chest, planning her next move. The next day she looked for Mr. Jenkins. The old chauffeur was the only person she could trust. She found him in the garage, cleaning the Mercedes. "Mr. Jenkins, I need to talk to you. It's urgent." The man looked at her with his tired but wise eyes. "It has to do with little Sophia, doesn't it?" "How did you know?" "Because I've been seeing things too. Things I don't like." He dried his hands on a rag and guided her to a corner of the garage where they couldn't be overheard. "3 weeks ago, Miss Isabel asked me to take her to New York, to a neighborhood I know well because my sister lives nearby. Queens. A complicated place." "To what address?" Mr. Jenkins pulled a small notebook from his pocket. "I wrote it down because it seemed strange to me. Bleecker Street, number 43. An old, half-abandoned building. Miss Isabel and Mrs. Veronica went in there. They were inside for almost 2 hours. When they came out, the older woman was carrying a large envelope, and both looked, I don't know how to explain it, satisfied, as if they had closed a deal. Lucy felt like everything was falling into place. Do you remember the exact date? May 23rd, 2 days after the girl supposedly left for boarding school. "Mr. Jenkins, I have to ask you something, and it's dangerous." The old man looked at her intently. "If it has to do with getting that girl out of wherever she is, count me in. I've been working for this family for 30 years. I saw Sophia born. I saw her take her first steps. I'm not going to stand by while that woman hurts her." Lucy took out her phone and showed him the photographs. Mr. Jenkins turned pale. "My God, where did you get this?" "It doesn't matter. What matters is that we have to act fast. The wedding is in 2 weeks. After that, it will be impossible to reach Sophia. Isabel will have full legal control over Ethan's decisions and over any child in his custody. What do you need me to do?" "Take me to New York, to that address. I have to see with my own eyes where Sophia is, and I have to find a way to get her out of there." Mr. Jenkins nodded gravely. "Tomorrow is my day off. I can say I'm going to visit my sister." "What time?" "At dawn, before anyone notices I'm gone." That night, Lucy barely slept. She reviewed the photographs again and again, memorizing every detail, the address, the documents, Isabel's signature on the forms, and she prayed, although she hadn't prayed in years, that it wasn't too late. Dawn arrived with a dense fog covering the hills like a shroud. Lucy went down the attic stairs with a small bag over her shoulder, dressed in discreet clothes, dark jeans, a grey blouse, comfortable sneakers. Her phone was fully charged, with the photographs saved in 3 different places just in case. Mr. Jenkins was waiting for her in the garage with his old Chevy, not the family Mercedes. It was better to go unnoticed. "Are you sure about this?" he asked, as he started the engine. "No," Lucy admitted, "but I can't not do it." The trip to New York took almost 2 hours. They passed through sleepy towns, fields of sunflowers beginning to open toward the sun, ancient olive groves stretching to the horizon. Mr. Jenkins turned on the radio, but both were too tense to pay attention to the music. When they reached the New York suburbs, the landscape changed. Apartment buildings squeezed next to each other, narrow streets with laundry hanging on the balconies, walls covered in graffiti. Queens was a neighborhood with history, but this specific part had fallen into neglect. "It's there," Mr. Jenkins pointed, stopping half a block from a 4-story building with a peeling grey facade. The number 43 was barely visible above the main door. The windows on the upper floors were dark, some with broken glass covered with cardboard. The front door was secured with a rusty padlock, but there was a side entrance, a metal door slightly ajar. "Wait for me here," Lucy said. "If I'm not out in 20 minutes, call the police. You should call them now." "No, we still don't know what's inside. If it's just an empty building, we'll look like lunatics. I need to be sure." She got out of the car before Mr. Jenkins could object. The air smelled of garbage and dampness. Stray dogs foraged in overturned bins. An elderly woman watched her from a window across the street, then drew the curtain. Lucy approached the side door. It was indeed open, hanging from broken hinges. Inside, a concrete staircase led up into the darkness, graffiti on the walls, broken bottles on the steps. She took a deep breath and entered. The first floor was empty. Apartments with doors torn off, rooms ransacked, wires hanging from the ceiling. She went up to the second, the same. The smell was worse here, mold, urine, something sickly sweet and rotten that turned her stomach. On the third floor she heard something. Voices. They were coming from the end of the hallway. She approached slowly, keeping close to the wall. The voice became clearer. It was a woman speaking in a low but harsh tone. "You already ate yesterday. Today is a fast for you. It's good for discipline." Lucy reached the door where the voice was coming from. It was slightly ajar. She peered through the crack. What she saw took her breath away. It was a large room, probably what was once a complete apartment, with the internal walls knocked down. There were 6 metal cots lined up against the walls. On 5 of them were children, small children, between 4 and 8 years old perhaps, all dressed in dirty, ragged clothes. Some were lying down, staring at the ceiling. Others sitting with a lost look. And on the last cot, recognizable even with the dirty, tangled hair, was Sophia. The woman watching them was stout, with a stained robe and a cigarette in her mouth. She left the room toward the hallway. Lucy quickly hid in a dark recess until she heard her go down the stairs. She entered the room. Sophia slowly looked up as if the movement cost her effort. It took several seconds to focus, and when she did, her eyes filled with tears. "Lucy," she whispered hoarsely, "are you real?" Lucy ran to her and hugged her. The girl was ice cold, too thin, trembling. "I'm real, my love, I came for you. She said Daddy didn't want me anymore, that's why he left me here." "Lie. It's all a lie. Your daddy doesn't know where you are." Isabel tricked him. Sophia clung to her with desperate strength. "Are you going to get me out of here?" "Yes, but I need you to trust me. Can you walk?" The girl nodded. Lucy took her hand, and they left the room. The other children watched them in silence, with empty eyes that begged to be saved too. "I'll come back for you," Lucy promised them. "I swear." They hurried down the stairs. Lucy could hear the woman on the first floor talking on the phone. They slipped out the side door just as the voice yelled, "Hey, stop!" They ran to the Chevy. Mr. Jenkins already had the engine running. They tumbled inside and the car sped off with a screech of tires. "Did you get her?" Mr. Jenkins gasped. "I have her," Lucy said, holding Sophia in the back seat. But now comes the hard part. They couldn't take Sophia directly to the mansion. Isabel would have explanations prepared, falsified documents, contacts in positions of power. They needed a better plan. Mr. Jenkins took them to his sister Mary's house, a kind woman who asked just the right questions and offered her home without hesitation. "The child needs rest, food to recover," Mary said, preparing a hot bath. "And you need to think about what you're going to do." While Sophia slept for the first time in weeks in a clean bed, Lucy and Mr. Jenkins talked. "The wedding is in 5 days," Lucy said. "If Isabel marries Ethan, she'll gain total legal power. She could make Sophia disappear permanently. Then we have to stop the wedding. Not just that. We have to expose her in front of everyone, in front of witnesses, where she can't escape or lie. What do you propose?" Lucy looked toward the room where Sophia was sleeping. "We're going to take Sophia to the wedding. We're going to interrupt it. And we're going to tell the truth." The following days were meticulous preparation. Lucy called the mansion, saying her mother had gotten worse and needed urgent care. Isabel barely seemed to notice. She was too busy with the final wedding preparations. Mr. Jenkins discreetly contacted. A police inspector he knew from childhood showed him the photographs and the documents. The inspector promised to be nearby on the wedding day with an arrest warrant ready. Mary helped Sophia recover. She bathed her, fed her, dressed her in clean clothes. But she didn't touch her torn red dress. That dress would be part of the evidence. The girl, although still scared, began to regain some light in her eyes. "Am I really going to see Daddy?" she asked every night. "Yes, my love. Very soon." The wedding day dawned clear and hot. The gardens of the Dunn estate shone under the June sun. 200 guests, ornate tables, imported flowers, an orchestra. Everything was perfect on the surface. Isabel was radiant in her lace dress. Mrs. Veronica, dressed in black as always, supervised every detail with an eagle eye. Ethan waited by the altar, in an impeccable suit, but a distant expression. In his pocket he carried Sophia's teddy bear that he had found days ago. He didn't know why he had brought it, but he couldn't leave it. The music began. The guests stood up. Isabel walked down the petal aisle when the side door opened. Sophia appeared, dirty, in the torn red dress, barefoot. Behind her, Lucy with her head held high. The silence was absolute. "Daddy," Sophia whispered. Ethan was paralyzed. Then he ran, stumbling, falling to his knees before his daughter. He hugged her, crying, "Sophia, my God, what happened to you? Where have you been?" Isabel screamed, "Get that woman." "Out, guards!" But Lucy stepped forward, pulling out her phone. "Sophia never went to any boarding school, Mr. Dunn. Isabel locked her up in a clandestine institution in New York. I have the proof. Photographs, documents signed by her, Mr. Jenkins's testimony, who saw them enter that place. She showed the images on her phone. The guests approached, horrified. The photographs passed from hand to hand. Isabel paled. "That's ridiculous. Ethan, this woman is lying. She's jealous, resentful." "Then explain this," said Mr. Jenkins, handing over the receipts, the documents with her signature. "The St. Jude Institution. $350 a month to keep the child isolated. No visits, no calls." Mrs. Veronica tried to back away, but several guests blocked her. Sophia, trembling, spoke in a broken voice. "She told me Daddy didn't love me. She left me in that dark place. There was no food. It was cold. I cried every night." Ethan sobbed, hugging her tighter. Then he stood up, with Sophia in his arms, and looked at Isabel with eyes full of fury and pain. "How could you? How could you do this to my daughter?" "It was for our own good," Isabel said, losing her composure. "She was a hindrance, an obstacle to our life together. I just wanted to—" "You wanted what?" "To get rid of my daughter as if she were trash." The police inspector, who had waited discreetly among the guests, stepped forward, showing his badge. "Isabel Carter, Veronica Carter, you are under arrest for kidnapping, child abandonment, and child abuse." Isabel's screams filled the gardens as officers handcuffed her. Mrs. Veronica remained silent, defeated. The guests watched in shock. Camera flashes captured everything. The following weeks were a whirlwind. The authorities rescued the other children from the building. The story appeared in every newspaper. Isabel and her mother were sentenced to years in prison. Sophia spent time with child psychologists, slowly recovering. Ethan left his business for months to be with her. Every night he read her stories, just like before. Every morning they had breakfast together in the garden. Lucy received offers for better-paying jobs, articles, interviews. She refused everything. She only asked for one thing, that the other rescued children receive the help they needed. "I wasn't a hero," she told Ethan. "I just did what anyone should have done. See and act." Ethan offered her a permanent position at the mansion, with triple the salary and, full medical care for her mother. "Not for what you did," he clarified, "but because you are part of this family. You always have been." A month later, Sophia was playing in the gardens again. Her laughter had returned, although she still had nightmares some nights. Mr. Jenkins taught her to play chess. Marta cooked her favorite dishes, and Bear never left her side. One afternoon, Ethan and Lucy sat under the century-old olive tree in the garden. Sophia was napping on the blanket, hugging her. "Stuffed animal." "There's something I don't understand," Ethan said. "Why did you do it? You risked your job, your safety. You could have just looked the other way like everyone else." Lucy looked at the sleeping girl, her face finally peaceful. "Because looking the other way is what allows evil to thrive. Because when you have the power to do something good, even if it's small, even if it's dangerous, silence becomes complicity." Ethan nodded, tears in his eyes. "I owe you more than I can ever repay. You don't owe me anything. Just promise me you'll never again let anyone come between you and your daughter. Real love doesn't need intermediaries or manipulation. It just needs presence." Months passed. The mansion regained its warmth. Ethan reduced his travel, found trusted managers. Sundays they spent in town buying ice cream like before. Lucy was promoted to house administrator. Her mother moved in with her to the restored wing, where she received adequate treatment. Mr. Jenkins became a grandfather figure for Sophia. Marta taught the girl to cook desserts. One day Sophia asked Lucy, "Why did Isabel hate me so much?" "She didn't hate you, honey. Some people are so empty inside that they only think about themselves. They can't see the value of others. But that is their tragedy, not yours. Will Daddy get married again? Maybe someday. But this time, he'll know the difference between someone who loves your family and someone who just wants what your family has." Sophia thought for a moment. You love our family, don't you, Lucy? Yes, little one, very much. The first anniversary of the Day of Truth, as they called it, was commemorated privately. Ethan, Sophia, Lucy, Mr. Jenkins and Marta planted a rose bush in the garden in honor of all the rescued children. Sophia had grown. Her nightmares were less frequent. She had made friends at the local school Ethan carefully chose. She never spoke of boarding schools again. Scars don't disappear, her therapist told Ethan, but they can become reminders of strength, not pain. And it was true. Sophia was more empathetic, more aware. She volunteered at the local animal shelter. She wrote letters to the other rescued children who were also healing. A journalist came to do a special report. She wanted to turn the story into a documentary. What you did was extraordinary, she told Lucy. It could inspire millions. It wasn't extraordinary, Lucy replied. It was simply human. The problem is that we have normalized indifference so much that basic decency now seems like heroism. What would you say to someone who sees something wrong but is afraid to act? Lucy looked to where Sophia was playing with her father. That fear is natural, but the remorse of not acting lasts a lifetime. That children cannot save themselves. That sometimes justice needs someone to have the courage to break the silence, even if their voice trembles. 2 years later, the mansion gardens hosted another celebration. But this time it was Sophia's birthday. Children ran between the tables, balloons floated in the air. Laughter filled the space that was once a stage for darkness. Sophia, 9 years old now, blew out the candles on her cake. Among her guests were some of the children rescued from St. Jude, also recovering, also laughing. Lucy watched from the terrace. Mr. Jenkins approached. You did something important, Lucy. We did something important. You, Marta, everyone. No one can change the world alone. But together we can change someone's world. Ethan came up with Sophia in his arms, although she was almost too big for that now. I want to say something, he announced. The guests fell silent. 2 years ago, I almost lost the most valuable thing I have by believing the wrong words and ignoring the right actions. This woman, he pointed to Lucy, who had no reason to risk anything, risked everything. Not for reward, but because true love doesn't calculate the cost of doing the right thing. The attendees applauded. Lucy felt tears but held them back. Sophia ran down and hugged Lucy tightly. Thank you for not letting me disappear. You could never disappear, my love. Your light is too bright. As the sun set over the Virginia hills, painting the gardens gold and orange, Lucy thought about the entire journey. The doubts, the fear, the sleepless nights, but also the certainty that some truths, even if they are buried in the darkness, always find a way to emerge into the light. And that, sometimes all it takes is one person willing to look where others do not want to act when others are silent, to believe in the dignity of a child when the world has decided to ignore it. Because in the end, the most important truth is not shouted, it is lived. In every small act of courage, in every hand extended, in every voice that refuses to remain silent in the face of injustice. The truth lives in the gardens, where there were once shadows, and now there is laughter. And that truth is simple. As long as there is someone willing to see, no one will remain invisible.